Hello everyone, welcome back to another Warhammer 40k 8th edition battle report. Today we've got 1500 points of very angry Tyranids against 1500 points of fairly passive and loving and cuddly Death Guard, who are just very misunderstood because of their given title. This is the battlefield we're playing on. It's a slightly modified version of the previous battlefield based on some feedback we got. The middle is more fortified now, it's been moved up a little bit, it's taller so that there's a bit more line of sight blocking for when the match starts. Hopefully keep things a bit more balanced. Let's go take a look at the armies and get started. So here we have the 1500 points of Death Guard being led by Mortarion himself. Next to him there is the spells he's been given this match. Smite, well Smite is by default obviously, Miasma of Pestilence and Curse of the Leper. So that's a super heavy auxiliary, but the main force is a battalion, being led by a Lord of Contagion with the Fulgurous Helm, which increases the range of his Nurgle Rot Aura ability. Also a Malignant Plague Caster who has Plague Wind and Putrescent Vitality, as well as Smite, obviously. Troops wise, we have, is that 9? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 Plague Marines as they come, 2 10-man Poxwalker squads, a 5-man Death Shroud Terminator squad, and then the Blight Hauler and the Plague Drone at the back there. So going up against the Death Guard is a very kind of monster mashy Tyranid list. It is a battalion though, so to get the prerequisite troops out the way, 2 minimum 6 Genestealer squads, again just to fill the space. Tyranid warriors with a venom cannon on the one that has it modelled, but the main bulk of the force is the rest of the large lad you see around him. So the warlord is the swarm lord, he has a set warlord trait. He is going to be coming down in the Tyranid with the venom cannons. We also have Death Leaper here, we have a Horspex, we have 2 Thornbacks with enhanced senses, and then we also have new and also painted in contrast paint, a Tyranids with Rupture Cannon. And then at the back here, we have a Winged Hive Tyrant with Chameleonic Skin as a relic taken, so it's a -1 to hit it with ranged. And it's equipped as you see, weapon-wise. Psychic powers-wise, Dominion and Paroxysm, and then the Swarm Lord has Psychic Scream. I think that covers everything. Both armies have 8 command points. And now we have to roll up and see what mission we're playing, so we'll back in a second with that. So via random d6 roll off, we got Dawn of War, which is the long table edges, as the deployment type, and we got the Relic as the Eternal War mission we're playing. So that's the Relic in the middle of the map, both teams are fighting over it. Infantry can move it, but anybody can claim it, but infantry have priority, you can't take it in a transport, etc, etc. And it doesn't have secondaries, the Relic mission, as we discussed when we played this on the other channel. We are going to include the secondaries just so there's more to aim for, but it's going to be First Strike, so both armies have the chance of getting it. Slay the Warlord and Linebreaker, just again so there's more points on offer purely than just for the Relic. But thankfully, Dawn of War means that both armies are only going to be 12 inches away from the Relic, so it's going to be a very bloody, very messy, quick fight, I think, one way or the other. We'll get the army set up, then be back at deployment. So at deployment, this is how things are looking, and here is the Relic in the direct centre of the map. Legend has it that a Tau, Farsight Enclave and Ultramarines fought here at one point. This is a leftover dealie from that moment, so for whatever reason, both armies want that. We come down here and scan by the Death Guard deployment. We've got Mortarion right here, kind of obscured by this platform here. Got the Malignant Blight Hauler. So, the names of these units. Blight Hauler for sure, but as for the word that comes before it, anybody's guess. No, because it's Malefic, yeah, the Malefic Blight Hauler, and then Malignant Plague Caster. Totally normal words that you use every day. The Lord of Contagion is there, 1 squad of Poxwalkers, the Death Shroud Terminators, the Plague Marines, the other Poxwalkers, perhaps hoping to move around the far side, and the Bloat Drone at the back there. And as we scan the Tyranid deployment, the Hive Tyrant is out of line of sight there, then we've got the Warriors, the Carnifexes, the Tyranids, 1 squad of Genestealers, the Horspex, the other squad of Genestealers. Off the table to come in later, Death Leaper, whose target will be the Plague Caster, the Swarm Lord in the Tyranid as well to come down at some point. Obviously Synapse is a bit of a problem for this Tyranid list, with the Hive Tyrant and the Tyranid Warriors being the only ones currently on the field that have Synapse. Luckily Synapse isn't as big a deal in 8th edition, so it affects charge distances. For those out of Synapse, they're obviously not fearless, and shooting gets -1, but that's why there's a lot of Synapse around the Thornbacks to keep, and the Tyranids to keep them at their normal ballistic skill. Anyway, the Tyranids finished deploying first because they have some stuff in reserve, and everything of the death guards is on table. So they're going first, by choice, unless the death guard sees the initiative. Oh, well, death guard turn 1. So at the end of movement and psychic for the death guard, pretty much everything has moved up as you might expect. Both Poxwalker squads advanced, not very much, but they are zombies, so cut them a break. Death Shroud Terminators also advanced, but they've got a half their advance distance, so also did not get very far. Plague Marines followed up behind them, just moving as standard. Mortarion, obviously, you can see him there, hopped up onto that. And the Bolt Drone stayed hidden over here, and the Blight Hauler, sorry for going backwards and forwards, is hiding under there. In terms of the Psychic phase, didn't have a particularly successful one. The Plague Caster tried to do Putrescent Vitality on the Poxwalkers and failed despite using a command reroll. Mortarion tried to use Miasma of Pestilence on the same Poxwalkers, also failed, didn't want to cast anything else because nothing was in. Well, actually no, he tried to cast Smite because he could see the warriors, and it failed and couldn't reroll. So not a particularly effective Psychic phase, but there is some shooting to be done, I think, so let's see what happens. So at the end of Death Guard turn 1 proper, there's not much more to report. The only real damage was done by Mortarion firing the Lantern, his plasma pistol, at the Tyranid warriors. They were in cover, so they got a little bit of a bonus, but that still did not help, and it does 3 flat damage, so it killed one of the Tyranid warriors outright, but they're in Synapse, so they're fearless. But 1 out of 3 is down, and they are infantry, so that's important for the relic. Other than that, the Plague Marines that were in range just took some pot shots at the Carnifexes, even though they are separate units now. Didn't do anything to them. And then finally the Blight Hauler, Multi-Melta and a Crack Missile into one of the closest Thornback Carnifexes. Also did nothing. So not a particularly effective first turn. Has made some distance, obviously getting to the relic there. The Poxwalkers though aren't defended by psychic powers, which was kind of what we were betting on, but either way, it's time for the Angry Tyranids to get some revenge in their turn 1. End of movement and psychic for Tyranids turn 1. These Gene Stealers have advanced, everybody making use of Kraken's, Hive Fleet Kraken that is, ability to roll 3 dice for advance and pick the highest. Horuspex is also advanced and is just kind of eating the vegetation hanging off the building there for some reason. Tyrannifex has stayed still so he can fire twice. The other Gene Stealers though, they have advanced, they advance very well, and they have touched the relic. And it's not the front one that's touched it, it's the one behind the front one. He is now holding it, so if they move back, the relic moves with them. They're only allowed to move a maximum of 9 inches though. And obviously they are in a spot of bother because there's a lot of Death Guard over there. The 2 Thornbacks have moved up, side by side. The warriors have stayed still. And in order to create a distraction, also apologies for the bin lorry in the background, the Winged Hive Tyrant has swooped on over and is facing down Mortarion to try and give the Gene Stealers time to escape. Now let's see what happens in the the shooting and or assault phase. So at the end of shooting, but with assault still to go, there was some effective firing. One Carnifex, well Thornback, shot into the Poxwalkers that managed to kill 8 of them. The other Thornback fired at Mortarion, so they couldn't finish them off. The Tyranid warrior with the Venom Cannon also shot at the Poxwalkers and whiffed. So 2 of them survived, so first strike was not achieved by either army. At least not yet. And the Tyrannifex fired twice because he stayed still. He shot at Mortarion with all 6 Rupture Cannon shots. That, combined with the Heavy Venom Cannon on the Winged Hive Tyrant, has got Mortarion down to 13 wounds from his 18 he started with. Also there's Sora's cameo for the day. Don't sniff those Tyranids, they're not yours. But the Hive Tyrant is going to charge because he wants to keep Mortarion from doing anything to those Gene Stealers. Might be a suicidal charge, he's not the Warlord though. But we'll see what happens. So whether an exercise in foolhardiness or hubris, After the assault phase at the true end of Tyranid's turn 1, the Winged Hive Tyrant was absolutely annihilated by about 14 or 18, something like that, damage coming through from Mortarion with his ×2 strength attack on his scythe. Utterly annihilated it, destroyed, so the Hive Tyrant is gone. Mortarion's sitting on 13 wounds, and he is free to act in the next turn. Now, that's technically first strike, but it wasn't first strike in the Death Guards for turn 1, it was they achieved first strike in Tyranid's turn 1. I'm not sure if that means it pays out or not. We'll hopefully not have to have it matter by the end of the game. But for now we're not sure if it counts or not. Either way, moving on to Death Guard turn 2. So end of movement and psychic for Death Guard turn 2. The worst part we'll cover first. The Malignant Plaguecaster tried to buff the Death Shroud Terminators, managed to pearls, did 3 mortal wounds to himself, he's on 1. He did then attempt Smite, despite the risk of him obliterating himself. He succeeded and did 1 wound to the Gene Sailors, so the closest one has been removed. Over here, Mortarion failed to cast Smite, but he successfully cast, Miasma on the Death Shrouds, so they are -1 to hit until the start of the next Psychic phase. Speaking of which, the Death Shrouds just moved up normally. The Lord of Contagion is with them over there with the 2 Poxwalkers, the Plague Marines are behind. The other Poxwalkers have kind of shifted slightly to the side to follow in behind them. All the way over here, the Blight Drone has moved around to use his Plague Spitters on those Gene Sailors. Let's see what happens then. Oh, and obviously, Mortarion is facing down the Carnifexes head on. Let's see what happens at the end of the shooting. So at the end of shooting for turn 2 Death Guard, just before some assaults are made, here's how things are looking. Mortarion shot the Lantern at the Tyrannifex, so also passed through this Carnifex. And as you can see, it did damage. So the Tyrannifex is down to 9 wounds, this Carnifex is Thornback, whichever, is down to 5 wounds. The Blight Hauler managed to land a hit with his Multi-Melta, and got this one down to 3 wounds remaining. The Gene Stealers were taken out by a combination of the Biospurt thingies that the Death Shrouds have, and also rapid firing from the Plague Marine, so they're wiped out. The Relic has not moved as a result of that. And over here, the drone managed to use its Biospurts to take out 3 Gene Stealers, leaving 3 remaining. So, the Death Shrouds were going to charge, but there's nothing for them to charge in range now really, so it's just down to what Mortarion's going to do. Let's see. So at the end of Death Guard turn 2 proper, perhaps very expected, Mortarion he charged both Carnifexes because they were counting as separate units. He took no damage on the way in, despite them rolling an abnormal number of 6s, just couldn't get the wound rolls. He split his attacks. He did the one where he gets 3 times the attacks normally, but they're weaker. The one that had he had 2 wounds left, I think, or 3 wounds, but he took 1 wound from Host of Plagues. He only had 3 attacks put on him, the rest were put on the one with 5 wounds, and both of them went down. Mortarion then consolidated a little bit forwards. He is still an absolute powerhouse if left unchecked, so let's see what Tyranids can do in their turn 2 when their backup finally arrives. So after movement in Psychic for Tyranids turn 2, Deathleaper has arrived 9 inches away from his target, which is the Plaguecaster. The Tyrannocyte has dropped down 9 inches away as well, and dropped off the Swarmlord 9 inches away. The Swarmlord used Smite and Psychic Scream, and took out 3 Plague Marines in the Psychic phase. Over here, the surviving Gene Stealers have moved around a little bit, and the Horror Specs has moved to go after the Blight Drone. Everything else has stood still, so the Tyrannifex will be shooting twice, and the Tyranid Warriors are just hoping to hide in the ruin, and the Mortarion leaves them alone. Let's see what happens in the shooting and or assault phase. So at the end of Tyranids turn 2, we have a few things to cover. Deathleaper made it into combat with the Blightcaster, did more than enough to take out his 1 final wound, consolidated into the Lord of Contagion even though he's not able to hit, and the Lord of Contagion is able to hit him. Deathleaper's hard to hit, so the Lord of Contagion whiffed. They're locked in combat. It was basically just to avoid trying to get shot upon by all of them. The Swarmlord failed his charge, his 9-inch charge, to get into the Plague Marines. He also took a wound on the attempt, so he's lost 1. Let's see, what else? Over this end of the table, the Horsepex charged the Blight Drone, didn't take any damage on the way in, used his Shoveling Claws, and got the Blight Drone down to 6. In return, He took 1 wound and is down to 12 remaining as well. That's it for their turn. The Death Guard are surrounded now, but Mortarion is still very much alive, so I don't think they have much to be scared of. Let's see what happens in Death Guard turn 3. So at the end of movement and psychic for Death Guard turn 3, the plan is basically form a protective bubble around the surviving Plague Marines while they grab hold of the relic and make a runner for it. The Death Shrouds kind of formed a line because they're going to go help against Death Leaper. The other Poxwalkers, they didn't move very far, they didn't get a good advance, but they're trying to screen the Swarm Lord over there. Mortarion moved in. Looks like he's gunning for the Tyranids. He cast Smite successfully and did a wound. He tried to do Miasma of Pestilence, pearled, and took 2 wounds, I think he did. So he's down to 9 remaining. And that's about it in terms of movement. The Horror Specs is obviously locking the Blight Drone in. So I think we're ready. Oh, actually, the Blight Hauler didn't move. He's just going to move up. So we'll do that in between and get on with the shooting. So we're just skipping to the full end of Death Guard turn 3 because their shooting was very ineffective, but that doesn't really matter because they made up for it in Assault. Mortarion has taken out the Tyranids. He is done. He consolidated just a little bit into the enemy deployment area. Over here, the Death Shroud Terminators dispatched the Death Leaper and then consolidated just towards the Swarm Lord a little bit. The Lord of Contagion didn't even get to swing this turn. Wasn't all good though. Over here, the Bloat Drone was unable to hurt the Horror Specs. The Horror Specs ate him without losing any more wounds and consolidated a little bit towards the enemy lines. Still, it's looking good for the Death Guard. Not sure if the Tyranids are going to be able to come back at this point, but they're certainly going to give it their all in their turn 3. At the end of movement for Tyranids turn 3, the Tyrannicite has moved along here, as has the Swarm Lord. In the Psychic phase, the Swarm Lord got a Super Smite and killed 6 Poxwalkers. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 6. Over here, the Horror Specs advanced, got a good advance roll, but he can't charge this turn as a result. Unfortunately, the Gene Stealers also followed suit. I think they can charge this turn, it's just the Horror Specs that can't. And the Tyranid Warriors have poked down and are in front of the Malefic Blight Hauler. So, we'll be back at the end of shooting and or assault in a second. And at the full end of Tyranids turn 3, let's just quickly recap what's been happening. The Swarm Lord has got the Death Shroud Terminators down to 2 remaining. 1 died prior to combat, I believe from the Venom Cannons from the Tyrannicite. Then 2 died to him in combat. He took 1 wound from the survivors in retaliation. Over here, the 3 Gene Stealers killed 2 Poxwalkers. Obviously, their morale held because they're fearless, but they were unable to do any damage back to them. And then over here, one of the Tyranid Warriors took 1 wound or 2 wounds, sorry, on the way in, leaving him on 1. In combat, they were only able to get 1 wound off of the Blight Hauler, putting him down to 6 remaining. The Blight Hauler did nothing else in return. And that's it. That's all the Tyranids could do. So we're on to the penultimate turn now for the Death Guard. Let's see what they do. At the end of Death Guard, turn 4 movement and psychic, here's what we have so far. Just an overview of everything moving up, basically just gearing up for some combats. The Lord of Contagion is going to join the fight against the Swarm Lord there. Mortarion is going to go after the Warriors. Tyranids are not in a good place. The Plague Marines in the centre have been protected by Miasma of Pestilence, and that's about it. On we go. And at the end of a very quick turn 4 for the Death Guard, just recapping the combat. Mortarion made his charge, obviously. He killed the Warriors, so now they're done and dusted. The Gene Stealers, however, were able to finish off the Poxwalkers, so they're now free. Then over here, the Lord of Contagion is not actually as good in combat as the Death Shrouds, so he wasn't able to do anything. The Death Shrouds struck the Swarmlord, did one more wound off of him, but then the Swarmlord finished them off. So that's the Death Shroud's gone. Lord of Contagion still locked in combat with him, though, as we move into the penultimate turn for the Tyranids. What's left of them, anyway. At the end of turn 4 for the Tyranids, the surviving Tyranids are consolidating their position, basically just gathering together. In the Psychic phase, Smite and Psychic Scream were used on the Lord of Contagion. He's down to 4 wounds remaining. There's not going to be... oh, there is going to be a shooting phase, actually. The Tyranid can shoot. So we'll be back with a recap of the very brief shooting, and then there's going to be 2 charges, the Horsepecs and the Genestealers going after the Plague Marines who are currently holding the Relic. So at the end of Tyranid's turn for the Swarmlord, I was going to say Hive Tyrant, Swarmlord got the Lord of Contagion down to 2 wounds remaining. The Lord of Contagion did better with his attacks this turn, getting through the 3+ invul, and the Swarmlord is down to 4 wounds remaining. Over here, the Horsepecs and the Genestealers successfully charged the Plague Marines, but were unable to do anything beyond a single Plague Marine dying. Well, I just realised the Plague Marine died to the Shoveling Claws of the Horsepecs, so I think he regens a wound automatically off of that. So we'll apply that retroactively if need be. Genestealers whiffed though, the Plague Marines are still holding the Relic. And that about does it. So now it's the final turn for the Death card. Another quick turn for the Death Guard. They've wrapped up their final turn. Mortarion murderized the Horsepecs easily. In the combat over here, the Genestealers lost 1, but they're fearless thanks to the Swarmlord being nearby. The Plague Marines lost 1, but not the one that's currently holding the Relic in his possession. Over here, the Lord of Contagion is down to 1 wound, and the Swarmlord, I believe, is still on 4. So, it doesn't look like there's much that the Tyranids can do to claim the Relic, but because we're not just playing the Relic, we'll play out the turn, see what happens. So a real quick final turn for the Tyranids. The Swarmlord was able to finally kill the Lord of Contagion and then just backed into the enemy deployment zone. Over here, the Genestealers weren't able to do anything, so that was a stalemate to take off the casualties from the last round of battle, but that's it. So we're into the final recap. So at the end of the game, if we were just playing the Relic flat out, it's a major or minor or draw as the possible victory conditions. Major victory if you're holding the Relic, which the Death Guard are because the Plague Marines took possession of it before the Genestealers came into range. It's a minor victory if... hang on, let's see. We've got the card here. If a model is carrying the Relic, it's a major victory. The Plague Marine is carrying it. Otherwise, you go by distance to it, and that's a minor victory, but as we said, the Plague Marines in turn 4 picked up the Relic. If both players are equally close, then it's a draw. But if we count that as just, say, 2 points for getting a major and 1 if it was a minor. The secondary objectives, neither side obtained first strike, neither side obtained slay the Warlord, although it was kind of close for the Swarmlord there, and both sides have line breakers. So if we're going by victory points on that point scoring, it would be 3 victory points to the Death Guard, plays 1 victory point to the Tyranids. The Relic is always a low scoring game, which is why it technically doesn't even have scores associated with it. So whichever way you want to count it, it's a Death Guard win, either as a major Relic victory or in the point system we were using. Mortarion, as usual, stomped face. It's unfortunate that the Tyrannifex had 1 bad round of shooting. He had 1 good round of shooting Mortarion, and then he had 1 bad round plus 1 bad Overwatch. So that was the best chance to take out Mortarion, but the Tyranids in general struggle with him because the way you handle Mortarion is weaken him as much as you can on the way in, so he can't do as much when he gets to you. But that was a fun one. I hope you enjoyed. Please do go check out the other videos we have. There'll be more 40k battle reports in the future, as well as Batman ones and painting videos as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Ta for now.